Hi, I'm Bess Jowsey, Pasture to Profit Consultant for LIC in North England and Scotland. Thank you for joining me for this video on the spring rotation planner. Early spring grazing is a balancing act between three things: rationing the grass that we've conserved through winter until Magic Day, getting the winter pasture grazed to stimulate growth, and hitting the correct residuals to set the farm up to produce high quality grass for the remainder of the season. A spring rotation planner is a tool designed to help you successfully navigate through early spring grazing, with the main goal being to hit 100% of the farm's grazable area before Magic Day. So essentially this means you will have utilised between 1 and 1.5 tonnes of dry matter per hectare before the grass has really got going for the year. By using a spring rotation planner properly, you will have the best chance to successfully balance the supply of grass with your herd demand, hit that 100% grazed goal, and achieve your average farm cover targets every spring, regardless of the variability in conditions we face from year to year. A spring rotation planner is different on every farm, so I'm going to talk you through the basic setup and then tell you how to use it most successfully. So I'm using the AgriNet spring rotation planner in my example, but you'll find that most planners will have similar parameters to get yourself set up. The first parameter is your total grazing area. Now this obviously includes your grazing platform, but there might also be some additional silage ground that you could access with the cows and get an early grazing of. Your starting rotation length will depend on when you turn out. The later you turn out, the shorter your starting round length will be. If you're wanting to turn out, let's say around mid-February time, then 120 days would be a good fit. Your end round length, now this is your typical 21-day rotation based on the 3-leaf principle, or if you're organic farmer, 25-day rotation. The start of grazing is relatively self-explanatory. This is when you anticipate you will turn out. But if your actual turnout date ends up being significantly different from what you planned on your planner, you need to make sure that this is updated on your planner with your actual turnout date if it's significantly different. The start of your second round, this should be just before Magic Day. That's the point at which grass growth exceeds herd demand. So this is quite stocking rate dependent. For example, if you have a highly stocked unit, you may require a growth of 60 kilograms of dry matter per hectare per day to actually achieve Magic Day. Whereas if you have a lower stocking rate, you maybe only require a growth rate of 40. So if both of these farms are in a similar area, it's highly likely that the lower stocked unit would be able to achieve Magic Day earlier than the higher stocked unit. Also, as you can imagine, Magic Day is impacted by your farm's geographic location. I know that in North England and Scotland, Magic Day will usually occur between the 10th and the 20th of April. So let's say, for example, I'm expecting Magic Day around the 15th and I want the start of my second round to be a couple of days before Magic Day. So I'm going to put that at the 13th of April. This target start cover, that's your actual farm cover that you have on farm when you turn out. So that means that between now and when you turn the cows out, you need to update this with your current average farm cover. Your final average cover is the average farm cover that you should hit at the start of your second round. And this will be the lowest average farm cover on your farm for the entire season. And this is also stocking rate dependent, so it needs to be appropriate for your farm. The reason why we deliberately mine average farm cover down very low at Magic Day is to ensure that we can maintain pasture quality as that spring flush arrives, because the farm will very quickly go from a deficit situation into a surplus situation. So then we can basically create our plan. So these parameters will set up your spring rotation planner. The first thing you need to check is that your starting round length allows you to actually hit your 100% grazed target. So you'll see here that based on the starting round length I entered of 120 days, the start of my second rotation is predicted to occur on the 14th of April. Now, obviously, this is not too far out from the 13th of April, which is what I wanted it to be. But just to emphasize the point, is if I adjust this starting round length and shorten it slightly, that will mean that I will get my 100% grazed slightly earlier, and obviously make sure that that's appropriate to what you were hoping it would be. So there we go. Now my start of the second round is now on the 13th of April, which is when I wanted it to be. So most people will be familiar with this part of the rotation planner. This is the rotation chart. It seems to be the area that people would recognize most readily. Basically, on the left-hand side, you have the rotation length, which in this example is starting at 115 days and gradually dropping down in a straight line down to magic day, which is when we should be hitting our 21-day rotation. And this obviously is trying to balance with the gradual increase in pasture growth across the spring. The corresponding area is plotted on the right axis. And this is simply your total farm area divided by your round length. So in the first week, I have a round length of 115 days. If I divide my 139 hectare platform into 115, I end up with needing to allocate 1.2 hectares per day for that particular week. In the second week after turnout, my average farm cover, my round length reduces slightly. So I'm going slightly quicker, which is 104-day rotation. So 139 hectares divided by 104 means my daily allocation increases slightly, in this case to 101.34 hectares per day. And so on and so forth as we move across the planner. Now, underneath the graph, we have a table showing the same things. Basically, this first column here is the dates or the weeks since turnout, and then the second column is the daily allocation of area that you are supposed to give for that particular week. Now, remember, this is a spring rotation planner. It has no relationship with herd demand. So in this example, in that first week when I should be allocating 1.2 hectares to the stock I'm turning out, that might mean that I'm turning out 70 cows because I'm a spring calver, or if I'm an autumn calver, I might be turning out 300 cows onto that 1.2 hectares. So it's your job to make sure that the pre-grazing cover on that 1.2 hectares is appropriate for the number of stock that you're putting onto it, and that you're supplementing that stock appropriately to ensure that those residuals are achieved. So going back to the table, you'll see the next two columns are the total area grazed and the percentage of the farm grazed consecutively. Now with AgriNet, every time you enter new farm walk data across the spring, it will automatically update your spring planner, and it will fill in these actuals columns so that you can track is where you are compared with your target. Now these last two columns are the ones that you should monitor most closely, and these unfortunately are the ones that farmers either seem to ignore or just don't really understand their importance. So if there's one part of this video you should listen to carefully, it's now. A spring rotation planner is just that. It's a plan. But as we know with farming and grazing, no 2 years are the same, no 2 springs are the same. So if we follow a spring rotation planner religiously without reacting to the conditions, it can get us into a lot of trouble. So the best advice I can give you is to monitor your actual average farm cover against your target average farm cover after every farm walk, and alter the rotation length accordingly. So this is a different spring rotation planner. This is an Excel-based spring rotation planner that I'm going to use to demonstrate my point around the average farm cover. So you'll see that this graph is just a straight line between what my actual turnout cover is and then what my average farm cover should be, or actually needs to be, at Magic Day. And over here on the left, we have a table which basically says the same thing. Now, let's say, for example, in this planner, I turn the cows out as I planned to. My average farm cover at the start was 2,050. And then as I went through my first couple of weeks of grazing, everything seemed to be on track and going not too bad. My average farm cover was tracking not too dissimilar to what my target needed to be. Now, in the first week of March, I had a challenge on farm and I didn't have a chance to do a farm walk, so I didn't have any data to enter that for that week. Now, that just happened to coincide also with some really poor, very cold weather. By the time I got around to doing another farm walk, and this was around about the 10th of March, my average farm cover had dropped significantly, and it was certainly well below where it should be on target. So, you know, my average farm cover should have been around 1960, but you can see here that it's dropped to well below that at 1920. So if we think about the basic grazing principles, how should we react when average farm cover gets too low? We slow the round length, or in this case, we do not speed the round length up like our spring rotation planner says we should. Instead, we should stay on the current round length that we are already on. So for example, on this planner on the 10th of March, it says that I should be increasing my daily area allocation up to 1.93 hectares. But because my average farm cover is too low and off target, then I am going to stay and maintain my daily area allocation on 1.68 hectares per day. Now, let's say for the next couple of weeks, I stayed on 1.68 hectares per day, and my average cover gradually got itself back on track. And so by the 24th of March, I'm back on target. Once that I hit that, I revert back to my planner, and on the 24th of March, it says I should be allocating 2.74 hectares per day. Now, let's say, for example, you know, we're getting into late March, the weather has definitely been improving, the bit of nitrogen that I've spread is really starting to kick in, and all of a sudden, my average farm cover goes above target, so it's being maintained even though I'm grazing off significant areas. It's above target. So again, reverting back to basic grazing principles, what should we do when average farm cover is too high? If we can, we should speed up our round length. So or in this case, obviously our spring rotation planner says that we would speed up our round length anyway. So instead, on the 31st of March, instead of increasing to 3.48 hectares per day, I would skip ahead and I would increase to 4.76 hectares per day. So I'm basically going ahead by a week on my planner, and I'm going to go a bit more quickly around my paddocks to try and get that grazed off and align growth with demand better. So let's say once we've done that, we get back on track, or we get close to being back on track. And then once we are pretty much back on track, we just revert back to what our spring rotation planner says we should be on for that particular week. So hopefully that you can see, by monitoring average farm cover closely across the spring and reacting to whether it is above or below target, you can accurately navigate your way through the variable spring conditions to achieve 100% grazed and to hit your average farm target for the start of the second round. Now, unfortunately, what I have seen occur on a number of occasions is that farmers are either not monitoring their average farm cover, or they're not reacting to when the average farm cover is going off track. So you can see that if I had not reacted in early March by by staying slow, and I had continued just to follow my spring rotation planner, my trajectory, or my average farm trajectory, was going to be dropping far too quickly. And I would have ended up down here with an average farm cover of 1850 2 weeks too early. Now doing that will suppress grass growth, and it will delay Magic Day. And if I had continued to follow my planner, I would have ended up with an average farm cover down here in the 1700s, which, as we know, is dangerously low. And it will require an awful lot of supplementary feed to get us back out of that deficit situation. So my key points are: have a plan, do a planner. Ensure your plan is appropriate for your farm location and stocking rate. Complete a farm walk regularly through the spring and calculate your average farm cover. And then monitor your actual average farm cover with your target average farm cover on your planner. If average farm cover is too high or too low, react by manipulating the round length until it is back on track. This brings me to the end of my video on spring rotation planners. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you have been able to follow my logic. If you'd like further clarity on how to ensure your spring rotation planner is applicable for your farm, or some of the you require further explanation, then please get in touch with myself or one of my Pasture to Profit colleagues.